Hey everyone, just a quick video to help review inversions for triads. So if you're um, keeping track of it at home with the textbook, I'm looking at pages 97 through 99 or so. So first, we discovered what triads are, and we talk about triads in terms of what quality they are, and mostly that's determined from root position. Remember, we stack notes into thirds in order to know what the bottom third is and then what the top third is. And if you need to review what the patterns of thirds are for each type of triad, please do that. Okay, so here we have a triad, a D major triad in root position. That is that all the notes are stacked in thirds. Or for me, I think about it as a shish kebab where you can put a skewer through it, and all the notes are either on spaces or lines. Here they're all on spaces. In this position, this is called the root position. Okay, if instead of the roots, and also when they're in root position, by the way, the bottom note is called the root. The middle note is called the third, and the fifth note, it's called the top note is called the fifth note. So these names always stick with these members of the triad. Okay, even if we put the notes in different octaves, we'll still call them root, third, and fifth. So F sharp in this instance, in this context, will always be a third, for example. Okay, if I have the F sharp in the bass, okay, this is called a first inversion. So by bass, I mean the lowest sounding note. If instead of having the root being the lowest sounding note, I have the third, then we call this the first inversion. And then again, if I have the fifth of the note of the chord, sorry, being the bottom sounding pitch, also we call it the bass, right? That's called the second inversion. Okay, and for inversions, really all we are looking at is the determining factor of inversions is what the lowest sounding note is, and we also call that the bass. So those two things are interchangeable. But whatever is lowest sounding, because music, you won't always just have a treble clef. You'll have maybe a bass clef, or maybe you have different instruments playing together. Maybe you have a piano playing with the electric bass, and then maybe a timpani. But whatever in each instance of everyone playing chord, whatever the lowest sounding note determines what inversion the chord is. Okay? And also, in an inversion, it doesn't matter where the top pitches are. They can be in any octave. So, for example, I can put this note up an octave, and this is still a second inversion D major triad. Also, it doesn't matter how the notes are doubled. So, for example, right now I only have one note for each of the members, D, F sharp, A. But let's say I had another A in there, so I doubled the A. You still have a triad because a triad has three notes. Okay, and in this case, this is still a D major triad in second inversion, in open position, but definitely still in second inversion, because it is the notes are the D major triad, okay, and the note the note that is the lowest sounding is the fifth. Okay, let's say that you have a triad here. Let's say, I don't know. Let's do something like this. Okay, so I have these three notes, and I have to figure out what kind of triad it is and what inversion it is. Okay, the first thing to do, before you're able to determine which note is the root, which note is the fifth, first thing to do is to reconfigure this chord into stacking them into thirds, okay, so that we can know what kind of chord it is and which one is the root, which one is the third, which is the fifth. So to do that, I can bring the C down an octave and the G up an octave. Here we go. So after I do that, now I know that this chord is a C minor chord, C minor triad. Okay, the C is the root, the E flat is the third, and the G is the fifth. Right, and let's go back to the previous before I stacked them into thirds, the previous positions. Okay, so this is what we had before. Okay, now I see that the lowest sounding note is the G, which we determined is the fifth of the C minor triad. So this particular chord as it stands is the C minor triad in second inversion. Again, because the fifth of the chord is in the bass, it's the lowest sounding note. Okay. And again, you can double this. You can double any of these notes. You can have it can have another G here. Maybe you can have another C below. Okay, it doesn't matter if you have octave doublings for other members of the chord. Essentially two things. One, if all of the notes are part of the same triad, C, E flat, G, and two, if you look at the lowest sounding note, if that note is still the fifth in this case, then you still have a C minor triad in second inversion. Okay, so I hope that helps, and please continue with musician, and please email me if you have any questions.